That's something to mark off mine. That's something to mark off what I had down too.
So we can put on later into the I don't remember if we do it next year. I mean, put it later, not put it in July. Because it makes no sense to just waste our time in July.
Well, if it gets it closer to the time of evaluation, it would be a little bit more retention.
Yeah, but you know, do the evaluation next June. Maybe one this June and we'll do another next year. So we can do it anytime, but you all need the credit this year, so that makes you feel later.
Yeah.
You all could get that credit.
Yeah, because I mean, we all need it. Well, I don't need the credit. I'm already full up with my credits.
Yeah, no, it's a requirement.
But
it's not just the credits.
Well, I know.
You have to have
it's not just me; it's everyone now.
Yeah, I have to have one. But you have to have every year. Yeah. It depends on how many years you serve. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But we can do it later. Because, you know, it's hard in the summer. People's schedules are crazy. Summer schedules, vacation. You're not allowed now.
I'd like to welcome you to the February 24th meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education. We hope you enjoyed the JCPS student artwork that was displayed on the screens before the meeting. The artwork was featured in the Kentucky Derby Museum's annual exhibit, Horsing Around with Art, a student's view of the sport of the Kings on February the 11th. At 4 p.m. today, the board held a work session where we discussed the professional growth and effectiveness system and program evaluation work plan and schedule. At 5 p.m., the board held its annual Head Start Early Head Start training session. We will do a moment of silence, after which the students from Mazik are going to lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, after which Board Vice Chair Jones will read the vision statement. So please join me for a moment of silence and then the pledge. Thank you. Okay, if the students would like to go to the microphone, if you'd stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, students, very much. Vice Chair Jones.
The vision of JCPS. Our vision is that all JCPS students graduate prepared to reach their full potential and contribute to our society throughout life.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the February 10 minutes? Mr. Brady, second. Ms. Westland, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Recognitions and resolutions. Ms. Terry Robinson.
Dr. Hargens, Board Chair Diane Porter, and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education. This evening, we begin with the recognition of the Triage Time Team, made up of Mazik Middle School students, Mark Raj, Phoebe Lipinski, Anjali Chada, Aditya Meta, Jacob Ioff, and Allison Tu for being selected as the 2014 Best in State winner in the Verizon App Innovative Challenge. The competition encouraged students' interest, creativity, and knowledge in science, technology, engineering, and math subjects, and mobile technology through engaging and empowering learning experience. The competition provides an opportunity for middle and high school students working with a faculty advisor to apply their STEM knowledge, skills, and creativity to develop an original mobile app concept that incorporates the use of STEM and addresses a need or problem in their school or community. Board Chair Diane Porter, please come forward to congratulate the Mazik Middle School students. Joining in the recognition is their principal, Chris Berber, and parent sponsor, Vic Chata. Thank you. Next, we are very proud to recognize one of our district's most outstanding teachers, Darlene Horton. Teacher at Cane Run Elementary School, she received the Trailblazing Teacher Award from the Center for Green Schools. She is one of 10 teachers from across the United States to receive the award. The award recognizes outstanding teachers who have demonstrated a commitment to advancing eco-literacy and environmental sustainability in the classroom. In honor of her accomplishment, she will receive a small monetary gift to be used to expand her efforts and to purchase instructional equipment, curriculum materials, and event-related or field trip-related items. At Cane Run Elementary School, she has been very instrumental in introducing students to environmental concepts through her extensive work with the school garden and related projects, as well as providing real-world learning experiences for her students. The garden and its water feature have become central to math, literature, and social studies lessons, in addition to ecology and plant science. She also uses the National Energy Education Development Curriculum to teach her students about energy and energy conservation. Cane Run Elementary School was named the Rookie School of the Year by the NEED Project last year for Kentucky and for the nation. Board member Chuck Hadaway, please come forward to congratulate Ms. Horton. Joining in the recognition is her principal, Dr. Gwen Goffner. It is our pleasure to bestow recognition upon Mary Margaret Bell, Jefferson County Public School District Coordinator of Archives and Records, for being appointed to serve on the State Archives and Records Commission. Last November, she was appointed by Governor Beshear to serve on the State Archives and Records Commission until September 21st, 2017. The Commission has the authority to review and approve all record retention schedules submitted by the state and local public agencies through the Kentucky Department for Libraries and Archives. Through this process, the State Archives and Records Commission is concerned with and committed to preserving information of continuing value and making timely disposition of information of temporary value, in addition to advising the department on the range of other matters relating to archives and records management. Board Chair Diane Porter, please come forward to congratulate Ms. Bell. Joining in the recognition is her director, Paul Lanata. Finally, the district has the honor of recognizing one of our friends and partners in education, Sam Myers Incorporated, for its outstanding commitment and contribution to the 15th District PTA Closed Closet. On Thursday, January 2nd, the 15th District PTA Closed Closet was flooded with water due to a burst pipe in the Central High School Magnet Career Football locker room. Thousands of pieces of clothing were covered in water, and it was very apparent that if the wet clothes were not cleaned and dried soon, they would be lost. Don G. was contacted at Wave TV, and she put out a plea for help on Twitter. As a result, Metro United Way, the Courier Journal, the University of Louisville Public Health Office, Jefferson County Board of Education member Chris Brady, neighboring school districts, and others helped spread the word by retweeting the various needs of the day. In response to this plea, Sam Myers Incorporated came to take the clothes to have them cleaned and dried. The Jefferson County Board of Education and the Jefferson County Public School District extends their sincere appreciation to Sam Myers Incorporated for its generosity, support, and efforts to ensure that our students will have one of their most basic needs met, clothing to attend school. Dr. Hargens and Board Chair Diane Porter, please come forward to thank and recognize Sam Corbett of Sam Myers Incorporated.
You stand between these two attractive ladies here. Thank you.
Dr. Hargens and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education, this concludes our recognitions for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Is there a motion to receive the recognitions and resolutions? Ms. Haddad, second. Mr. Jones, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously.
Excuse me one moment.
I'm sorry.
Can I think you want to say something.
No, it is.
Oh, thank you. I would like to say congratulate all of you for your recognitions. And Mr. Corbett has been with the school district helping us out for 25 years at least. He provided tuxedos to the Performing Arts School, I know, for years, free, and the Excel Awards and all that. So he's always been a good partner with Jefferson County Public Schools. And he also served on the board with me for 8 years. And I don't know what that did for him or to him, but...
made me a better man, Ms. Haddad, and you gave me the opening, so I'm going to have to seize the moment and take 10 seconds on a totally different subject. Many of you all know of my involvement, Ms. Haddad's involvement, and lots of people's involvement in the Everyone Reads program. Well, a quick update. 10 years ago, I met a young lady who was in the 2nd grade at Roosevelt Perry Elementary. We connected in January of 2004. Last week, she was accepted for admission in the University of Kentucky for their next class.
Yeah.
Many of us realize the strength of the program. Ms. Haddad's been one of the biggest advocates, but I just encourage you to let's find a way to expand and make that even better, because there's the payoff right there.
Yeah,
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Brady?
Forgive me if I'm jumping the gun on this, but I thought we'd take a moment to recognize those parents and family of those recognized in the audience and give them a round of applause.
I was getting to that.
I'm so sorry to jump the gun.
It's not a problem. Parents of our well-deserving and exceptional students, would you please stand so we can thank you for all your hard work? And I think at this point, I always say we're going to dismiss you so that you may go work on homework because you obviously do a good job with that. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to your parents and to the schools, everyone, for the hard work that you're doing. So we're going to take a little pause for dismissal, and then we're going to come back, and Vice Chair Jones is going to make a motion for us to move our discussion item up. We're doing this on purpose, trying to make sure that people have an opportunity to see some of the things that we're talking about. So at this time, you're dismissed. Thank you.
You present me in a dilemma. I could accept a kiss from you or pass a kiss on to Chair Porter. I think that's what I'm going to do. I like chocolate. I won't be as smooth as Sam Corbett no matter what.
Mr. Jones.
That's great. I move to waive Board Policy 1.45 Board Meeting Agenda and amend the agenda to move discussion items 7A up to this point in the agenda.
Second, Mr. Hadaway. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. So we are now going to move to the discussion item 7A. Dr. Hargens.
Thank you, Chair Porter. And we'll have the presenters come up to the table. And while they're coming up, let me just tell you how important we know early childhood is. Our vision is that all JCPS students will graduate prepared. That will not happen if we don't get all of our students kindergarten ready, so they start at the same point. So what we will do is we've been administering the Brigance. We did it last year, and we did it again this year. So what the presenters will do is bring you the update of how we did in the Brigance, and are our students ready for kindergarten?
Thank you, Dr. Hargens, Ms. Porter, board members. It's an honor to be here with my colleagues tonight to talk to you about something that's very important to us, early childhood, and how we can ensure that kids become school ready. So by third grade, they're reading on grade level. So by the time they make the transition to middle school, they're strong. And by the time they leave high school, they are prepared. They're college and career ready. And that's the pathway, the trajectory we want them on. Today, we have three objectives. We want to ensure and share with you the overall improvement we've made in kindergarten readiness as measured by the Brigance test. We want to show you that that measurement is showing we're outperforming through our early childhood the rest of the state of Kentucky. We also want to show you that there is a plan that we have put in place that is moving along that's called concerted cultivation, where we help parents and families learn the key elements of school readiness and provide them with strategies so that they can work to ensure their child is school ready. So I'd like to turn it over to Karen Branham to lead us through the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Hensley. Board Chair Porter, Dr. Hargens, and members of the board, thank you for this opportunity tonight to share our update and progress on early childhood education. Joining me tonight are Kevin Nix, Early Childhood Director, and several members of his team. Angela Hawkins, Specialist for Educational Services and Health, Kathy Stovall, Unit Manager for Family and Community Partnerships, Jimmy Wathen, School Readiness and Education Transition Specialist, and then also joining us at the computer is Lisa Revel, Education Technology Teacher from Computer Education Services. Parents, staff, and community stakeholders frequently ask, what is the Brigance Kindergarten Screen? Adopted by the Kentucky Department of Education for statewide implementation in 2013-14, the Brigance Kindergarten Screen is a highly accurate, valid, and reliable tool to move school readiness forward in this state. This year, the Brigance Kindergarten Screen was administered to all kindergarten students in Kentucky. In JCPS, we had 7,759 students, or over 98% of our kindergarten population participating in the screen. The Brigance consists of 5 specific domains: language and communication, cognitive and general knowledge, and physical well-being are all components of the screen that are administered by the teacher. The social, emotional, and self-help components are completed by the parent. So, did data show that we achieved growth over this past year as a district? You can see from the data provided here that the kindergarten readiness improved in JCPS from 34.6% to 52.3% ready, an overall gain of 17.7%. In addition, you can see that all student populations improved from last year to this year. We're extremely excited to see that our African American students improved almost 17%, Hispanic students improved almost 14%, and free and reduced lunch students improved almost 17%. While we're very pleased with these results, we are not yet satisfied, and we know we still have lots of work to do. The next important question is, how do we compare to other students in Kentucky? You can see in this comparison provided that we're outperforming the state in all areas with the exception of our LEP students and our students with disabilities, both of which are slightly below the state average. I think it's important to note that if early childhood were to mirror the district, early childhood currently has no ESL department. So this is one area that we may want to revisit in the future to ensure we're meeting the needs of our youngest LEP students in the district.
Who do we serve? This slide gives you a general picture of the children and families that qualify for early childhood services. Are we making a difference? When you compare apples to apples in accordance with similar populations, the data shows the percentage of children attending an early childhood program at approximately 48% ready for kindergarten, as opposed to only 36% ready if they do not. This data was taken from this year's Kindergarten Brigance Readiness Screener.
What did we do differently? Our curriculum maps are aligned to the Kentucky Early Childhood State Standards. The teachers use the work sampling system 3 times a year to assess student progress. The assessment data is entered into Cascade, and they have access to individual classroom reports. After analyzing the reports, the teachers individualize for children on a weekly basis. They are able to differentiate instruction for students. As a part of our ongoing monitoring in early childhood, assessment audits were conducted by the curriculum resource teachers to ensure the integrity of the data. If there was an identified need or data lacking, action plans were developed with teachers to support them in more accurate data collection. Based on those identified needs, the Early Childhood Department then provided additional resources and professional development. In summer 2013 and at the start of this school year, we started working to include more instructional staff in research-based professional development. Previously, only the teachers and instructional assistants received professional development. The topics chosen were based upon student data and ongoing monitoring data.
How did we increase family and community involvement? The Early Childhood Task Force was created in 2013 and is made up of community businesses, action agencies, parents, board members, and partners in early childhood education. Our first task to establish what the task force felt was the most critical issue. We completed an overview of early childhood program and state standards. Through a series of activities and conversations, we asked the task force to rank what they thought was most critical to preparing preschool children for kindergarten. They ranked several ideas that they themselves generated. The idea of triangulation was identified. By this, it was meant to get information out to families, schools, and child care facilities about what is necessary for children to be kindergarten ready. The school readiness Vigil was decided to be used. Meetings were set up with the mayor's office, Norton Hospital, and other community organizations, mainly people the task force connected us with. There were mass mailings, emails, and face-to-face meetings to get the message out.
Additionally, we increased family and community partnership involvement with monthly school readiness family engagement activities, providing a variety of parent and child activities. These activities are coordinated throughout the community with community partners such as Louisville Free Public Library, Kentucky Science Center, and the University of Louisville. Family engagement activities include family literacy at the library on Saturdays, Dad Ventures at the Science Center on Friday evenings, and positive parenting at various locations and times throughout the city.
How did we define school readiness? We define it based on early childhood state standards as seen here in the school readiness visual. What resources are we giving parents? The idea of triangulation became known as concerted cultivation. The task force met again and shared ideas on how we can further educate the public about school readiness. The idea of having goals from the school readiness visual was great, but what if we could supply strategies on how to work with children to make this happen? So was born the interactive school readiness visual. Today, Jimmy Wathen and Lisa Rebel are going to give you a short example of what the school readiness interactive visual looks like.
This is the interface of our interactive school readiness visual. The interactive readiness visual contains the 5 school readiness domains. In each of these domains, you will find a series of school readiness skills, also known as indicators. In all, there are a total of 41 indicators. Today, I'm going to demonstrate readiness indicators under the general knowledge and mathematics domain. This brief demo will give you a general idea of how the entire interactive site functions. Under the general knowledge and mathematics domain, we have a series of 9 indicators. For example, this skill focuses on recognizing, naming, and copying basic shapes, including the circle, triangle, square, and rectangle. Clicking here will lead parents to a listing of activities and resources that will help them work with their child on learning the shapes. These activities may come in the form of instructional videos, online games, and activities. Parents will also find valuable resources they may print out to use when working with their child. All domains and skills on the interactive readiness visual follow a similar format to the one listed here, with resources, activities, and ideas to help parents reinforce school readiness.
Here, you notice the Louisville linked icon. We've discussed plans with our Media Relations Department on how to make this project more enhancing to the public and include many of the JCPS resources embedded in other areas. How do we strengthen links with the communities? We'll begin the process of concerted cultivation on March 25th at Bethlehem Baptist Church on Preston Highway. We'll work with parents, child care providers, and church members in the area to explain and expand their knowledge about what school readiness means. We'll walk them through a few of the activities that can be done with children either in home, church, or in a child care facility. We'll share the readiness visual and the interactive readiness visual. The idea is to equip these leaders to go out in the community and share what they've learned with others. What does the future hold? Just to highlight 2 of the upcoming early childhood initiatives. The first is through our partnership with our friends at PNC Bank Foundation. PNC has brought us together with an organization called Save the Children. Save the Children has offered to fund what is known as 2 home-based instructors, one at Hazelwood Elementary and one at Young Elementary. This program will allow us to reach 40 additional families, as well as provide books that families can check out to take home and read. We're also putting together the finishing touches on a contract with the National Center for Family Learning that will help enhance the literacy and parent engagement portions of early childhood. Through this partnership, NCFL will create a literacy program and materials designed specifically for early childhood. They will also help our department with the Summer Boost program at the Duval Education Center, as well as work with our parent community engagement unit to enhance and attract parents to activities. We truly want to thank the superintendent and you, the Board of Education, for the continued support of early childhood. We think the work we do is critical to JCPS in the future. We're thankful you see it this way also, and want to do everything in our power to produce the results necessary for us to move forward to becoming the best urban school district in the country.
And finally, in closing, we have 4 key takeaways that we'd like you, our board members, to take from this presentation. First, Brigance data shows over a 17% increase in school readiness. Secondly, we've shared data with you to indicate that JCPS is currently outperforming the state. Third, when comparing children of similar demographics, students served in JCPS early childhood are outperforming their counterparts. And finally, our plan for concerted cultivation with parents and community partnerships is in progress. And we'll close and open the floor to any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Brady.
Thank you for coming out this evening. I really do appreciate the update on what's going on with our kids. I have a few questions. First of all, we had talked about with the takeaways, JCPS is outperforming the state, and you're talking about the JCPS pre-K programs that we run. What was the performance? What was our percentage for those programs that are run by JCPS as far as how many of those kids coming out of those pre-K programs were kindergarten ready?
49.7%.
Okay, and what are the barriers that are preventing JCPS's own pre-K program from having a much higher percentage? I can understand maybe those kids coming from a non-JCPS run, maybe not quite understanding what is expected or not knowing what we consider kindergarten ready, but you would think that that percentage would be much higher.
Actually, it's an 18.9% gain over last year's.
And that's great.
And as I see that we begin to move forward and understand what it is, you'd think that since 2009 we've had early childhood standards.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not 100% positive, and I can only speak for it, I've only been here a year, that our previous structure was set up for kindergarten readiness. Data to early childhood is something that's brand new. Just in 1 year, I believe we've made great gains by focusing on standards, by focusing on what's expected to be kindergarten readiness. I don't know that there was necessarily a definition for that prior to this. I also think that we work with a very challenging population. 100% of our children in Head Start are at poverty. 150% or below of our children in preschool are at poverty, as well as 20 to 25% of our kids have some type of disability. When you get ready, when kindergarten readiness is not something that we can start at age 4. It's not something we can start at age 3. It's something we have to start at birth. There are several skills that if you don't have them even before you enter at 3, that we're going to play catch up to get to. We know that 60% of our brain development happens before our first birthday. That's a pretty amazing statistic to me. That's why concerted cultivation and working with the community is so critical in this, is that by the time we get you at 3, we need you to have some of the knowledge and skills, even if it's just being able to talk with your child and develop those language skills. Mm-hmm. I mean, we know there's a study out of the University of Chicago that says children in poverty hear 30 million words less by the time they're age 3. Those things matter, and they matter critically. They're not something that can be made up in 6 months or a year. It's something, like I said, it starts from the day you're born.
And the Louisville Link program seems to, and we were having this discussion earlier, it goes beyond, obviously, the traditional classroom. We're providing services to the community that really aren't the focus of what this organization is really charged with doing. And we do that because there's no other organization doing it. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for those that are in need to be able to come to us, and we'll be able to redirect them. So without going in detail the Louisville Link program, and those of you at home, if you're interested, check that out. It's a very great community resource. We need to do a much better job of promoting it. But the thing that occurs to me is that, you know, what you're saying here is that a lot of folks in our community really need access to that well before their children are ever going to be coming into our system. So my question to you would be, you know, I'm hoping that we're having big posters of these made.
They're everywhere.
And when we say everywhere, I would like, are we putting them in every single daycare program that we have in the county?
I've sent it. I've lost count of how many people I've sent it to.
Okay.
I think
we are hitting daycare programs.
Absolutely.
I know we saw faith-based organizations, but I want to make
absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely. We just had a meeting last week with 4Cs. I sit on several community councils that include 4Cs as part of our task force. And when I say 4 C's, I don't mean to use jargon that may not be understood. 4 C's oversees, little play on words there, all the child care regulations within the city of Louisville.
Okay.
They're able to get this to anybody and everybody that's out there. When I say we met with Norton Healthcare, we provided them with 7,000 copies. Every child born in a Norton Healthcare facility will receive that visual in their pocket.
Then we need to also partner with Baptist, and we need to also partner
Absolutely,
with
I agree.
So, yeah.
I'm in perfect agreement with you. So I said, this thing is roughly started in April of 2013, and I think we've made great progress. Do we have a ways to go? Absolutely, we have a ways to go.
And Mr. Brady, there are a lot of, exactly what you're saying is so true and so important. We need to saturate our entire community.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked with the mayor's office about TARC buses and bus stops and advertisements and billboards, everything that we can that can draw in parents, people who are thinking about being parents, everyone we can, to where there's that concerted cultivation, where everyone understands that they can make a difference in their child's success. And particularly working with kids in poverty and working with a lot of students, we can trace the achievement gap to age 1. At the beginning of age 1, there's no measure of achievement gap by the Bailey Infant Readiness Test. At age 2, it has already started. If we have the ability to address that school readiness and saturate our community and get action on the part of parents and others, we will see the achievement gap begin to close more and more, which is a major big rock for us, how we address that.
And carrying on to that point, I think that maybe it might be useful, because I think this is a useful graphic, but it might be useful for us to create other graphic or other type of tables like this that will or would be more age appropriate for those kids. Maybe, what you should probably expect to have for a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, and those milestones. And I'm sure that most parents can pick that up in a pediatrician's office. But the thing is that I feel that if we really need to push that out there in the community, and I remember that we had a workbook that I saw at one point that had some stuff that parents could do with their kids, coloring, be able to find a triangle and stuff. But I found I had the hard copy of it. I believe I was mailed to it, or that item was mailed to me. But I never saw it anywhere on our website to download.
It's on the early childhood.
Okay.
It is on there.
Our website is very hard.
Yes,
so
sir. I agree.
We need to do a better job of that, but that's another
to
discussion.
find it's in the drop-down box. So
Okay.
yeah, it's not an easy thing to find. I agree.
It
with
is
you.
not. It is not, because what it was, I've had to talk to a few parents about that, because parents are asking me proactively, what do I need to do to make sure my kid is ready? And I'm like, oh, there's this workbook out there, and I'm suddenly trying to find it, and half an hour later, I'm still pulling my hair out. So that's an issue that I'd like to be able to see us address that, and maybe forcefully put that out there, and even and put it on the Louisville Link site, and have a big old Louisville Link button on the front page of our home page, so it will be not so hard for us to find.
Our goals are the same.
Yeah, but there's things that we need to really move on. The other thing is that. And I got this, I'm going to cover up my kid's name, but since I am a parent of a kindergartner, I got this 2 weeks ago. Luckily, he's prepared. It says kindergarten ready. A couple things come to mind. One, this isn't, at this point, if I was a disengaged parent, but maybe this would be a wake-up call for me. It's almost too late. We have a huge gap. I mean, my son was tested in early August, September time frame. Obviously, it was done by October. In February, I'm getting the results. Not only that, but what I see here is it's great that it says, hey, your student's result is kindergarten ready, but it doesn't tell me anything more than that. And I don't know if it said not kindergarten ready, would it tell me what specifically needed to be addressed with my son or daughter? And I think that is something that we really need to do a much better job at, because if we're going to take the time and expense of mailing this out to everybody and putting it together, we should really take a little bit more extra effort and time to give them some really good actionable items and some data on their child to say, hey, look, this is what needs to be addressed. Now, hopefully that's already been taken care of by talking to our teacher and having that interaction. But I don't want to just assume that that goes on. And unfortunately, we do have parents that doesn't happen for a variety of reasons. Not trying to say it's a parent's fault. There are times when it is, but there could be other circumstances at play, social, economic, among those. So it's something that, when I got this, and my wife even commented on it, she said, yay, David's ready, but doesn't tell me anything. And we really like to have some more information on this. I mean, we'd love to be able to give them more ready. And I can always pick up the, email or pick up the phone and email his teacher. She's very accessible, but at the same time, I'm not sure if, many parents would probably even think to do that. And it'd be really nice if we're going to proactively give them this information. Let's give them something they can really, act on.
Right, and I agree. This doesn't come from our department, but we're willing to work with whoever to help with the strategies on how to be kindergarten ready.
Well, whose department does this come from?
It comes from the testing department, and actually I worked with Erica Thompson to put that out. One thing that I will point out is that we're bound by when the data is released from KDE, that's when we can release information to parents. And so we'll agree with you that the timeliness is not the best. Yeah. But when Brigant's data is released from KDE, then that's when we can share information with parents on those official results. But we can definitely work to add some additional details on that when those reports are mailed out next year for parents. But we wish the timeliness was a little bit better as well. We're in agreement with you.
Yeah, we heard similar information earlier this afternoon regarding Head Start, and that time frame, and I know this isn't all the way up to you, but that time frame is really unacceptable, especially for a parent. And we're dealing with the consequences. And that kid, more importantly than anything else, that kid is dealing with those consequences, not just for kindergarten or first grade, but well into their early, scholastic career. So it's something that I'd really like to, I'm not sure what pressure we can put on KDE or the powers that be to be able to make sure that we have a quicker turnaround time, but that would just be so much. That'd be a big win for everyone.
We agree.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Haddad.
Yeah. That would be great too for the testing if the state could get that back to the schools in August instead of whenever they get it back to the schools. I serve on this committee and it's exciting. We have how many people now? We keep recruiting and they keep coming because people are excited about it and they want to learn about it and what we're doing. The National Center for Family Learning Partnership, I am so glad that we have finally gotten them. They've been here forever and we have never gotten them, and thank you for getting them involved because they are indeed going to help us. Because they go out
your recommendation,
yeah.
So thank you very much.
Yeah.
That was
they
very
go out
wise.
into the community and help with families, and that's one thing we really need to get more. We're trying to do a lot of different things to reach families, but they really know how to do, reach because they have for years. And then we want to get more people involved. I see you have a kind of a budget here of what it would be if we added 100 more children, and I think we need to look at that and take it seriously at budget time if we're talking about what we want to do to make kids successful, because then you don't have to remediate them. They can be remediated. I think that's right, early childhood expansion. And I think it would help us, and it would be cheaper than trying to remediate the children. So, and I had talked to Mr. Jones about going to foundations. Maybe they could help us. I know Humana started Success by 6, and I'd met with some of those folks when we first started this process. But we have the library, Louisville Library. We've got a lot of people, and the mayor and the governor that really care about what's going on. So we need to push it. I keep telling them we need to push a little bit further out so that we can accomplish it and not just sit around the room and talk about it.
Yeah, push it and fund it, Ms. Hyde.
I think pushing the funding. I think it is just so important, and we can keep doing the things that we're doing, reaching out to the community and doing all those things. But it is just really, really important, and y'all are doing a great job. And anytime I refer somebody, y'all are so gracious, and you bring them on. But people are excited about this, and they want to be involved with it. So I say, let's go onward and upward, and we as a board have to make a commitment to these little kids that they are our future. They're going to be. well, be taking care of some of us. I guess I'll be too old for them to take care of, but they'll be taking. These kids are our future, and people don't really realize that and appreciate that. But we have to really get out there and get these little ones in there, because I love them. I mean, when you watch one, you go in the store and you smile at one and smile back. So there's something there for every one of them, and we just need to find it in each and every one of them. So thank you for all your work. And he just started putting the website up. You were talking about that, and that's just starting to get into the process that parents can get on there. And we do need to keep, and this committee keeps finding ways for us to do more things. So anytime anybody suggests anything, y'all have been right there doing it. So thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you, Ms. Haddad, for your support. And I don't want to miss the question that Mr. Brady asked about unique challenges that we face in early childhood. And one thing I want to share is our overall structure in early childhood. In K through 12, we have very succinct lines. The 6 achievement areas are designated. The principals in those schools report directly to those 6 achievement area assistant superintendents. And so those lines are very defined. In early childhood, we so appreciate the many principals across this district that may have 1 early childhood unit in their school, 2 early childhood classes, what have you. Then we also have early childhood centers. And so we face a very unique challenge in just our overall structure of early childhood. We have some early childhood centers where there is a site administrator that reports directly to Kevin. Then we have principals that may house early childhood classrooms, and those principals report to the 6 area assistant superintendents. And so that's a unique challenge that we face in early childhood.
And that has a tremendous impact on everything from teacher quality to developing relationships with families to community partnerships. The way we have our students placed and the fact that we don't have that direct alignment and that direct, the supervision's really the wrong word, because it's really that sense of belonging. The way we operate doesn't quite optimize what we could do for early childhood programs and for our kids and families, because that structure is just a little off kilter.
Well, I think that's something we need to look at, and maybe they could report to Kevin, because you want it to be consistent. You know, we can't have things piecemeal, which we did have sometimes. So really, that's a good idea. We do need to make sure it's all going together, and that Kevin is responsible for what's going on in those programs, because you can't be if you're not there, you know, if you're not in charge of it.
If we looked at a way to design an early childhood program starting fresh, and I said, here's what I want to do. I want to basically put early childhood units in the backs of certain schools and have where we have little contact with them other than just one resource teacher trying to cover a large swath of schools. And the principal will not actually have those students move from his pre-K or her pre-K into kindergarten, you would say that's probably not the best structure to create for early childhood kids and families, and yet that's somewhat how it works.
Yeah.
All right, so what's preventing you from fixing it?
Mr. Brady, I'm not trying to get in the
Sure.
middle of everybody's conversation, but you've had an opportunity.
Fine.
Ms. Haddad's had an opportunity. Ms. Duncan is waving her hand, and I want to be respectful of that. So if you don't mind, I'd like to go to Ms. Duncan first and then back to you, because it's passionate for all of us, and it's probably more passionate for you at this point because you have someone that's participating in the program. But in fairness to all the board members, I would like to go to Ms. Duncan next, and then we will come back to you if you don't mind. Ms. Duncan?
Well, I just want to say, as new as all of this effort is, 18-point gain is phenomenal, and I'm extremely proud of the work, because I saw it out in schools. I saw what schools were doing, how they were reaching out to families and arranging events to bring them in at the first of the summer to prepare them for kindergarten in the fall. And I mean, I saw these things, and it's your effort that's being felt all over the community, so I appreciate that. And I think one thing we have to keep remembering is our preschool primarily does target, it's been targeting our lowest income families, and one of the things that jumps out at me here, well, of course, two things jumped out. One, I would love to see us track, when we give the Brigance, I would love to see us add the pay for lunch kids as a group, because we have all these other groups, and all we're getting then is all of the most at-risk, really, groups coming through on that data, whereas I'd like to see also what our pay for lunch kids are doing when they test for Brigance, because a lot of them have come through other programs. They've come through academies, they've come through private school situations, private daycares, and they have received some preparation at there too. So, but we're not feeling that, because the data primarily is focused on our free and reduced lunch population and the very high needs population. So I would love for us to add that when we give the Brigance, just add pay for lunch on there so we can see how those students are doing as well. But then 36% of the non-JCPS free and reduced lunch kids, when they're tested in Brigance, they're sitting in kindergarten, 36% of those free and reduced lunch who did not go through our program were kindergarten ready, compared to the 48% that went through our programs. Is there, I mean, you've described a lot of things that we're doing to try and reach them, but is there an opportunity to pull those caregivers or get information to those caregivers and those other centers that serve free and reduced lunch that are not a part of what we do, because they're out there, and there are lots of daycares that are serving high numbers of free and reduced lunch kids, but they're not under what we're doing. So is there any kind of organization out there that pull all of these people together so that they can receive the same information that our centers are receiving and do it in a coordinated way? I mean, is there any way to organize that?
One thing we've already done, Ms. Duncan, is that we specifically targeted, we pulled up all the addresses of every child care center in Louisville, in Jefferson County. And through my office, we've sent out letters to all of them. We've shared the early childhood readiness visual. We basically said, you tell us how many copies you want and we'll get them to you. If it was a decent amount that we could send through the mail, we mailed them. Kevin and I delivered some in some instances, we delivered boxes of them. So one thing we've done is to just get those early childhood readiness visuals out so that we have a common definition of what school readiness really is. And then in addition, we're hoping that through our concerted cultivation events, we've targeted 3 specific zip codes that we want to just begin with, but we plan to invite those child care providers and organizations to those events so that they can share in the information that we plan to give out.
And I'll just add that I sit on a committee called Jefferson, I think I told you this before, I'd have to always think of the name of it, Jefferson County Community Early Childhood Committee, I believe is the exact name. It's JCBE. And it brings together the entire community of early childhood givers. It works through a grant from the governor's office. And one of our pushes, as well as identifying kids with disabilities so that they could get into state-funded preschool or into Head Start, is to get the readiness visual out. It's been shared with these people. There's some money that's been set aside to advertise that and push it forward. So we're trying every avenue we possibly can to get it in there. As well as when kids can, and just to say thank you once again that you've provided the Van Hoos Annex for us for a permanent intake center. It helps tremendously as far as keeping up with records, having families somewhere to go where they're not catching a bus and walking all the way back. It helps families and it helps us also. But we have these posters there. They're up in the intake center. There are also the visuals are there, and we have approximately 8,000 applications that are taken a year. we can't take all the kids because some are not income eligible. However, it doesn't mean we don't want them to have the information. We want anybody who will take it to have the information. So just 2 more avenues, and we're willing to try anything we can to get it out.
Well, I just had one other question related to that. When you list on here that you did formative assessments, early childhood teachers did formative assessments, and then provided support, individualized support for their students. Is that also communicated to parents when they do these assessments, these formative assessments? Do they communicate that then to parents so then they can have an opportunity to work at home with them and help prepare them?
Absolutely. We have 4 opportunities to connect with families through 2 home visits and 2 parent-teacher conferences. And at each of those opportunities, parents have to make a school readiness goal in cooperation with the staff. The staff give them progress on the goal, and the parents then make a commitment as to what they're going to do at home to help with the school readiness goal. And so, yes, parents get updates no less than 4 times a year through home visits and parent-teacher conferences.
Very good.
Other questions? Mr. Brady, did we? Mr. Jones? No problem.
So I'm very pleased to see the energy and apparent progress here, but I would be not fully serving the data nerd side of myself if I didn't say that I find the test results totally unpersuasive. I've never heard of a human system where in 1 year you can move human performance by 50%, which is what 34 to 52% readiness really is. And I don't know what to take away from this. The descriptions of the training and the interventions and the things all sound good, but it is intuitively unlikely that that the children in Jefferson County became that much more kindergarten ready all of a sudden. So I guess, the question is, can you give sort of a more impressionistic explanation of what's gone on and what we really think will make a difference so that we move up to, all children really being ready to learn?
Yeah, Mr. Jones, I think you're right on to something very important. The Brigance has its limitations. I mean, as a test, it's about some rudimentary skills that kids have. The larger sense, our ability to help kids think at higher levels, to teach them the cognitives, but more importantly, really the non-cognitive skills they need all the way back in pre-K, those are much better indicators in the long run of a child's success than the numbers. The Brigance is a good baseline and has some important things about it, but it is not the chief indicator. It's not the thing that we can't prepare for the Brigance and ensure that all of our kids are more successful because they hit that school readiness mark. So we have to look at what we can do to build those non-cognitive skills, things like grit and persistence and self-control and regulation. Those kinds of things are much more important. Now, another more important thing is vocabulary. Our ability to develop kids' vocabulary by having their parents interact with them and negotiate and talk with them in much different ways than they presently do. Those will be the things that lead to the real indicators that start hitting at 3rd grade. When we see at 3rd grade, much more important than the Brigance is the student's ability to read. If we have a child reading on grade level at 3rd grade, then we've really done something. Then that's something that has a great deal of correlation, if not congruency, with high school graduation and college attendance. So I think you're right, but we're in the right. I challenge this group, this wonderful group of educators up here with me, to truly restructure our early childhood in the short term, in the middle range, and in the long term, much to Mr. Brady's point about what are we going to do about it. I think that there are other things much more more important than the Brigance that we do, and other kinds of data a little bit later on that we gather that'll be much more powerful for us.
So if I can just follow up, is there anything else this board needs to understand or do to help and support that broader, cognitive and social readiness? Because, I think you all have, and this information in the packet about the cost and the financial challenges of expanding early childhood, I think is pretty clear. That looks like a money issue, but getting our program, as good as it can possibly be, we need to make sure that we're measuring, but not only measuring.
Right.
So do we need to know anything or do anything else?
No, Mr. Jones, I think what Karen and Dr. Hensley discussed with Mr. Brady is key for us, is that somehow I have to have accountability or oversight of our classrooms. It makes it a great challenge, and we're not talking in a negative correspondence. We're not playing I got you. Even to help folks improve and get better, I've got to have some type of a straight line, and that's something we've got to figure out.
And it really, to add to Kevin's remarks, is about building a community. We have to build these communities where kids and teachers can grow together, and we can continuously get better, because in the aggregate way that we have it spread across our district right now, there's some real weaknesses. We can be more strategic. We can look at where we have locations, where we have seats we can fill, and that can help us. We can tighten all that up, and that's been the great work, a part of the great work this group has done to tighten up how we do that. But in the long run, we've got to figure out ways to build community around large groups of kids with large groups of adults that focus on the cognitives and non-cognitives and hold each other accountable for that work.
And I think further we've got to find a way to expand upon what we're doing now with concerted cultivation, is to let parents know, let child caregivers know what you do does make a difference. No matter how minimal it may seem to you, just having a conversation with an infant who's 2 or 4 months old is going to have a huge impact on their life. There's folks that simply don't have that knowledge. I think if they had that knowledge, they would act upon that knowledge.
Researchers call it unequal childhoods. It's where kids have, they don't really have an equal start due to the experiences or lack thereof that they have prior to going to school, and even beyond that, as they're in elementary school and as they move forward, you see more and more a difference between how children from poverty learn based on the experiences they've had and how kids from affluence or middle class learn. And it even traces, it's evident as part of the summer boost idea, the idea of summer regression, that during the summer kids from poverty move backwards, all of them. It's because of that lack of certain experiences. And we need parents to understand they can cultivate their child in very simple, very good ways that just by talking, that really don't cost money. They're about talking, they're about challenging, they're about asking questions and having kids think in certain ways.
The only other thing I'll share is that in 2009, with the new early childhood standards coming out, we now have early childhood standards that are aligned to the Common Core. So it's directly feeding into our K through 12 system. In addition, we have formative assessments now, class, Eckers, and then the Brigance. So I think those formative assessments are giving us feedback and data on how our youngest learners are progressing. And the only other thing I'll share is that the Brigance Kindergarten Screen has created an intentional focus on early childhood. If nothing else, it's created a spotlight onto how are our youngest learners progressing, how are they really doing. And so I agree we've had some tremendous progress from last year, but we also have to put into account that the intentional focus created by the Brigance, the accountability for early childhood, the standards, all those things are new for early childhood. And I think we're just seeing the interplay of all of those things kind of coming together. We have a long way to go, and we know we have our work cut out for us, but we are very pleased with the results that we've had thus far.
Things grow in the sunlight, and that's what Brigance has done for us.
Ms. Westland.
I don't have a question. I was going to ask about getting more money for seats, but I think we talked about that, and I think we know that's a task in front of us. I just wanted to thank you all for the clear professional report, and to also indicate that in the few years I've been here, this is the best report I've had, and the best team, I think, that's, as you said, Karen, very intentional, because you have the standards, but because you are intentional about, we hope we're intentional about everything, but it's obvious you are very intentional about improving early childhood. And I think the gains, whatever it means, shows momentum for sure, right? And it shows that you're really trying, that you're sending them out and you're taking boxes out, and that's the way to go at it. And so thank you so much. It makes me feel good that you all are doing this work. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Brady and then Ms. Porter. Okay.
You can go before me.
Just
You're
trying to
more than
stick
welcome to
myself
go
in there.
before
No,
me.
please help yourself. Just trying to stick myself in.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
So, going back to my original question, what's preventing you from fixing it? As far as alignment?
It's not an excuse, it's a reality. A lot of it has to do with space. A lot of it has to do with transportation. It has to do with cost. Not to say that it can't be with the right resources, it absolutely can be. I just don't know what the cost would be.
It sounded like it sounded like a little bit more of an organizational issue where certain people weren't reporting to certain other people, and I'm not sure how that has anything to do with transportation or whatnot, or physical space. I just
And
wanted to know.
some of it is organizational. You're right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
In the way that those things affect the most important things, which is teacher quality and relationships with families around the work, and ensuring that kids are there and attentive, and that they're with adults that are clear about what our mission is, that put mission above self, so that we have a system in place so that all of those things are primary, that they're really what we're doing. And in the aggregate way that we approach it now, we have people out there doing miracle work and doing tremendous things, but it's more isolated. It's sometimes in spite of the system rather than because of the system we've created. So we're moving in the right direction. We do indeed have that momentum, but there are some clear things we can do down the road that pulls kids together and puts adults around them and trains those adults well and builds the relationships with families and builds ownership all the way from pre-K to 12th grade with our kids.
Well, we're testing everybody, and they're not all, and we don't control all of the preschool. We're not structured. We don't have universal preschool, so that it's all under JCPS's authority. So we only have a fraction of the preschool that we control. So until we get all of that under one roof, it's going to be very difficult to control those structures.
Next up is Board Member Porter. Thank you, everyone. I want to congratulate you on the work that you've done, the work that you're doing, and the work that you will continue to do. And say that one of the things that we know for sure is leadership matters. And in this case, in this department, leadership has changed, and we can clearly see that it matters. We have heard positive reports. We have the formulation of the Early Childhood Task Force. Board Member Haddad and I serve on that. I heard you say tonight, and I don't think I want to go back to this, the fact that there is a new location, that we no longer are asking parents to get on a bus and get off and walk all the way miles to get to a school, to go to the back of the school, so you are more conveniently located almost directly across the street from the building that we're sitting in now. So we want to get that word out to everyone that there is a new location. And the outreach to the community, Ms. Haddad mentioned that, and you mentioned that going to the church, the meeting on March the 25th, I think is the date that you gave. And what you did was you identified for us 3 zip codes 40219, 40210, and 40203. So there actually will be 3 opportunities to do outreach, and that's a pilot. And hopefully what we hope will happen is people will take advantage of how that is presented to them, and that other churches and other organizations will step up and use this as an opportunity to outreach to parents also. So I commend you on that creative thinking to get the word out there. One of the things, well, not one, I've got several things that I think I heard you say is the increase the opportunity for children that need services. And I really don't care so much about whether they came from our program or somebody else's program. The bottom line is we are committed to get them ready by 3rd grade. So it matters less to me where they came from. What matters to me is what we do when we get them to make them ready for 3rd grade, because that's what will make a difference. I think I heard you say that we need to look at ESL support, because we are a compassionate city and we are going to have more members in our city, and so we deserve to put some dollars to that to support that effort. So funding, I've heard several ways, several times, so I'll say it multiple times: funding, funding, funding. And I leave you with this challenge to think big and bring back to the board what we need to support to get us where we need to be. You have come a way, but we have a farther way to go. And the importance and the passion for all of us is that we're reaching all the students that need these services, because we made progress, but we still are not where we need to be. But I think Board Member Jones said, what do we need? Well, what are you asking the board? So I would ask you to not small scale it, to give us a big plan and let us figure out how we can make that happen. I thank you for all that you do every day. It's important. It's about the children, and we must never forget that. So thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. Is there a motion to accept this report? Mr. Brady, second. Ms. Haddad, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Yes.
We're going to go back to the consent calendar and the superintendent's report, and we have a one-tie bid. No, we only did the one item. Yeah, we only did one item. So that's okay. We're going back to the consent calendar, superintendent's report, and there is a tie bid, but we will go with the superintendent's report first. Dr. Harkins.
Thank you, Chair Porter, members of the board. A few items of special interest. Recognizing that effective teachers and principals are critical to student success, one of the pillars of unbridled learning is next generation professionals. This is an essential component of our strategic plan. It's really one of 36 items. It's 4.6. The goal of this component is to ensure that every student in the state experiences effective teaching in every classroom and effective leaders in every school and district. To realize this vision, KDE is developing a statewide standards-based professional growth and effectiveness system, one for teachers, one for principals, and one for superintendents. The objective is to provide educators with a clear understanding of how they can be most effective, how they can have regular feedback about what they're doing, and to make sure they have tools, resources, and support to promote student growth, achievement, and readiness. I want to commend Ms. Armour and Mr. Young for their presentation in the work session, because that will have a huge impact on moving this district forward. What you'll notice on the consent agenda is a new position, Director of Internal Audit and Investigations. This position will strengthen our ability to quickly conduct financial audits and investigations, and will serve as a bridge between the two other departments that currently conduct investigations, security and compliance. This is a proactive step to build the necessary internal capacity and alignment needed to ensure that we have systems and structures in place to manage the risk in terms of likelihood and impact inherent in any large organization, and to be able to create and monitor strategies in response to that risk. Last meeting, we did an update on extended learning, which we call ATTAIN, and you asked 3 really great questions. How are students progressing academically for those students who attend that extended learning? And what you can see in the charts, in overall proficiency in reading, you can see where they were. That first bar would be where they were, and then where they were after the first benchmark, and where they were at the second benchmark. So the top of the chart is reading, and the bottom of the chart is math. And you can see actually bigger gains in math and more progress in math. If you look at the high school, you can see where students started in proficiency, but where they actually increased with those benchmark assessments in reading. And you can see in high school even bigger gains in math. And then in middle school, you see improvement both in reading and math. So that's in response to the question, are students doing better because of that extended learning? Then I believe it was Ms. Duncan asked, are the students who are attending school in extended learning, how is their overall attendance compared to what it was last year? Well, you can see that overall it's very similar. It's about 1 percentage point difference. So the attendance was 94.3, and it's now 93.3 for those students. So the same students, did they attend school? I think Ms. Duncan's worry was that maybe with the extension, they're missing a lot of school because of the extension. And that really isn't the case. It's a percentage point difference. And you can see in the high school about a percentage point difference, and in middle school about the same. But their attendance is in the 90s. And then the third question was a more in-depth description of the high school content described as community, social skills, or activities. Those hours are attributable primarily to one school, Wagner High School. The description of this component in the school's plan included connecting students, especially that do not live geographically close, allowing all students to be able to take advantage of personal growth and development, and providing an opportunity for students from the non-duplicated gap group to be able to participate in educational enrichment activities. Those were 11% of the high school students that were in the data actually participate in the community activities. It was 25% of the hours. But what's important to note at Wagner is that Monday is community building day, but Wednesday and Thursday are the core subjects. So those students are participating in community building along with core subjects. We mentioned Louisville linked, and you can see by this chart that the cumulative total is now 33,863 links between what a student needs and what the community can provide. So you can see steady progress each month with Louisville linked. Last board meeting, I'll mention also that we presented data regarding recruitment of teachers new to JCPS, and it really pointed to the need to capture data points from the actual application to assess if variables like the college attended or GPA or standardized scores correlate with overall effectiveness and retention of teaching. So what that pointed to is that we're going to do a better job collecting data regarding our teachers and tracking that data. And you might remember in the last work session, we also described our behavioral system, how we set expectations with the code of conduct, how we have proactive strategies in schools to prevent bad choices, and how we implement a set of consequences and supports to ensure students return to the classroom having their academic footing to re-enter the learning environment. But you might recall that we also identified 3 real needs. The first one is to make sure that all students, staff, and parents have a clear working understanding of the expectations of the board and the code of conduct. The second is the need for therapeutic services for some of our students. And third, to make sure that we do have transition centers developed so that when a student does miss class because of a suspension, that there's a transition so that they can regain academic footing and be successful in that learning environment. So I just wanted to give you a follow-up from the last board meeting. So Chairwoman Porter, at this time, I recommend the consent calendar for the board's consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Harkins. Before we pull items down from the consent calendar, I'd like for Board Member Jones to do the tie bid. Then I'll ask if anyone has any items to be pulled down.
Okay, thank you. This is the first time I've done this, so please correct me if I mess up.
You're doing a great job.
I've already messed up. Doesn't want to open. Okay. Ms. Haddad was really good at this. So the winner is Pyramid School Products Incorporated.
Okay, thank you very much. Great job.
All right, I'll get better, I promise.
Now, are there other items on the consent calendar that need to be pulled down? Mr. Hathaway.
Item C, VC.
Item C.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Duncan.
Item T.
Any others? Okay, let's go with item C, the approval of job descriptions. Mr. Hathaway.
I just have a comment. I want to commend superintendent's leadership in this area with creating the position of Director of Internal Audit Investigations. I think it is a step in good accountability as a public service, and also leadership in making sure that we are good stewards of the resources that we are given to reach good student achievement. So I just wanted to commend her for that move.
Thank you. And the other item was T, which is the approval of the memorandum of agreement with Jewish Hospital and St. Mary's Healthcare. Ms.
Yes.
Duncan.
Yes, this is for the prevention of obesity in kids 8 to 12. And I just had a couple questions about this, if somebody can answer that. I wanted to know when they reach improved nutritional proficiency, what that will look like. I'm not sure what that looks like. And then I just had a question about our measures for the objectives of this particular agreement. So anybody can talk with Dr. Hensley, what does improved nutritional proficiency look like?
It's a difficult thing to measure overall, but it's kids having a better awareness of exactly what nutrition is and have had experiences and enable them to make better decisions with food. And Bonnie will be able to give some real meat to that discussion.
When we're looking at that, what does that look like, Bonnie?
Well, there's different objectives. There's 3 different objectives that they're going to look at. Mm-hmm. The grant was coming from Johnson & Johnson, and John Hopkins has evaluators that'll be evaluating the program. But they'll do surveys, pre-post surveys for knowledge. Also, they'll do surveys for the behavior piece. But the objectives with the 20% of children improved nutritional proficiency, we want them to know what those recommendations are. So that knowledge piece will be looked at. Can they even identify 2 healthy foods, 2 healthy snacks, drinks, and differentiate between those? So that knowledge piece will be assessed and the behavior piece will be assessed. And actually there's a survey that was developed by Johnson & Johnson and John Hopkins that the students will take, and they're running it through EPI 7 is what it's called. And there's pictures on there that some of the younger students would be able to take a look at too, to answer for those surveys. The same thing with the improved physical activity. They're going to report, there might be a picture of swimming, there might be a picture of walking or running or jumping rope, and those students would then be able to pick the different activities that they would do, and then learn how to relay that information as far as how much physical activity are they getting. Same thing with screen time. How much screen time? Are they sitting all the time? Are they watching TV all the time? And being able to report that back with the pre and post. They're also going to work with the caregivers as far as the caregivers' information that they know about nutrition to be improved also, and be able to pick healthier choices. It's so difficult sometimes to differentiate between the nutrition labels. So what are the basic things that they want those caretakers to be able to look at, and also look at the barriers that students might be wanting to make those healthier choices, but what are the barriers for the family in being able to provide those fresh fruits and vegetables, or even those items that might cost more. So that's where the gardens come into play, and the students with the after-school program going to Oxmoor Farms and learning how to grow foods and learn how to plant their own foods and eat their own foods and learn about the nutritional value that way, and be able to help sustain them having those fresh fruits and vegetables for the homes, and decreasing some of those barriers.
Well, when I read the objectives, and I think it's like they're going to have increase their intake of fruit and vegetables, decrease their intake of sugary drinks, and increase daily intake of healthy snacks. Those are tough things to be able to measure, and I'm not sure if that's what you're really trying to measure, or if you're trying to measure their knowledge that they should be doing this. I mean, how are you going to find out if they actually, just by what they say, just their own self-reporting?
At one of the schools at Wellington, which is one of our wellness and fitness magnets, they do body mass index checks. They do all of those things. It'll probably be a little easier for them in terms of the measurement because of the partnership with Humana we have there. And now adding this into the mix, they kind of have some of those metrics that they already do. In terms of Hazelwood being one of our health promotion schools, they do the same kind of checks with body mass index. But I think overall what they're looking for is that kids have the knowledge, that they're able to make good decisions, so they give them, this is over a 2 or 3 year span, I think. And at the end of that, I think they're hoping through the grant to have the kids use technology, use other things to show they can make good decisions. So it's really, I don't know that I would call it a pre-test, post-test, but I think what they're looking for is to see if those kids hit the indicators at the end of the 2 or 3 years.
No, it's just confusing to me because it just feels unmeasurable when they say, we want you to decrease your sugary drinks. Then you don't know what they're doing at home. They can tell you whatever, and you don't really know that. So I'm just wondering if there's another way to state these objectives in a way that we can actually hit a measure on and get a response on, because this just feels kind of like you're not really going to be able to get that with data that supports what you're really wanting here. So I mean, we want them to decrease sugary drinks, but how? I'm not sure how we're going to know that.
I agree. It would be a shame at the end of this we weren't able to measure, and we wouldn't be certain if this had had any effect at all on the students. So hopefully we can.
I know that right now we, when a couple board meetings ago when we presented as far as the Y5210 data, that's the same kind of approach with the 5 fruits and vegetables a day and 2 hours or less of screen time, etc. And yes, some of those are self-reported. There's also a parent component to it as far as looking at, what the students are reporting and what the parents are saying and or providing. So there's going to be a lot of parent engagement with these students, and they're really focusing on the caregiver piece, who has the most care during those, the times that they eat and the times that the students are at home. What activity are they doing with them? So Beverly Winch has worked on the preliminary with John Hopkins and the evaluator that came in. There were 2 full days that were spent with Johnson & Johnson and John Hopkins. So those evaluators have trimmed this down to this approach. There were some other things in the grant before that were written in it, but they have trimmed this down to where they think that it will provide the data that they feel like they need.
And I would assume with Johns Hopkins being involved that there would be a reliable metric system that they're using here, that they would have figured out a way so they can use this data. And I agree with you, looking at the indicators are a little difficult to measure, but my hope is they have figured out a way to do that.
Well, it almost looked to me as if participation was going to equal that they did it. And I'm not sure participation does equal that you did the action, but it's what it looked like. If you can get 15% to stay, or if you can get 20% of the caregivers to learn these nutritional things that are presented, then, but that doesn't always translate over to just because they learned it there at school at that time, that when they go home, they're going to do that. They're going to practice that. So, I mean, it's just kind of a hard thing to put together. I mean, I understand it's certainly worthwhile. I mean, there's no question about that. But I'm just saying the measures just seem difficult for me to be what we're really trying to measure. So anyway, but I'm sure you'll work it out and be able to bring something back that shows that you've achieved these objectives. But thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'll express it to, when we meet with John Hopkins and Johnson & Johnson again, just to make sure that there's not something more that we could be doing.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it, Bonnie.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? Mr. Brady, second. Ms. Westland. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much. We will now move on to our action item for the evening, the approval to use restaffing turnaround model at Myers Middle School. Dr. Harkins.
Thank you, Chair Porter. Dr. Hensley and Principal Baldwin. Did you want anybody else up with you, Dewey?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Bob may, Dr. Radosky may come up in a bit if we need his assistance.
Okay, what they're going to do is provide the rationale for asking for the approval to move at Myers Middle School to the restaffing model. And while they're doing that, I want to acknowledge the new area superintendent, Michelle Dillard, who is in the audience. Congratulations on your new role. And Area Superintendent Dillard will actually be actually Myers Middle falls within her area, so thank you for being here.
Yeah, we'll do without the PowerPoint. Dr. Harkins, Ms. Porter, Board, thank you for the opportunity to be here with you. We have really two objectives for this presentation. We are here to request that you consider a restaffing model for school turnaround at Myers Middle School. And our second is to provide you with a rationale for why we believe that's the best way to move forward for the students and the teachers in that school. As we begin with this request for a switch from the transformational school turnaround model to the restaffing model, I would like to give you a little historical framework of where we are. Back a number of years ago, Jack Baldwin, who is here with me today, I'd like to introduce him, the principal at Myers Middle School. Jack became the principal of a school that was identified as persistently low achieving, Myers Middle School. When he stepped into that role, it had already been selected as a transformation model school. So Jack, as the leader, stepped into a school that didn't quite have the model that he had selected And it had been really, he inherited that. And while there's a great deal of benefit to the transformation model, when Jack stepped into that role, when Mr. Baldwin stepped into that role, that can be a real challenge. So flash forward to today when Myers Middle School is a Cohort 3 turnaround school, or what's now referred to as a priority school. Mr. Baldwin has been, and his staff and leaders, his Kentucky Department of Education staff that works with him, have been participating in the reapplication for school improvement grants. The school improvement grant requires you to choose a turnaround model that's approved by the federal government. That model of transformation, of restaffing, of closure, or an educational management organization, it walks you through some descriptors of what those are and gives the team an opportunity to look at which of these models might work for you. For Mr. Baldwin, the Kentucky Department of Education and his educational recovery director and the leaders there, along with Mr. Baldwin and some of our staff, Margie Eckerly, and others who were involved, some other assistant superintendents, noted that the criteria of transformation seemed to be somewhat problematic, wasn't quite working at Myers Middle School. So this seemed like a perfect juncture to consider a real fundamental change, the change to a restaffing model that has some different criteria, a different approach than the previous transformation model had. So taking all of this into consideration, Jack and his team looked at the data to see if such a dramatic change would be warranted. And what they saw that only one Cohort 3 priority school from Jefferson County moved backwards in all of the measurements in terms of achievement, in terms of closing the achievement gap, in growth, in college career readiness, and the overall score. Only one school moved backwards, and that was Myers in all of those areas. It became pretty clear at the advice of the Kentucky Department of Education staff and everyone involved that a dramatic change would be required at Myers, that a rethinking needed to occur that could help Mr. Baldwin and the teachers in that building to restructure and recommit and in a way revision what kind of school Myers needed to be. So they put together a theory of action, and the theory of action is basically, if we utilize the competencies and dispositions, the attitudes and skills employed by the best turnaround teachers that JCPS is in the process of describing, and we place those teachers at Myers, we find a way to get them there, to recruit, to hire teachers and ensure that they understand what those competencies are, what those attitudes and beliefs are. If we define the mission of the school with Jack Baldwin as the leader and pull together a guiding coalition of people who could make that happen so that there's a clarity of purpose, so that there is a group of people who serve as that guiding coalition to make that happen. If we focus on more effective instruction in more classrooms more of the time, then we can change the culture and improve academic performance in the school so that more students move toward graduating prepared in college and career readiness. So the team put together a theory of action. I came in and we had a long conversation and realized that this had to happen very quickly. The school improvement grant process was a very short window this time, with the actual applications being due on February 27th, which required us to bring this to you if indeed this is something that you agree with us, that this is the direction we need to go. We knew we needed to do this in a rapid framework, that we needed to really think this through. Now, you've had an opportunity to see the intervention models in a previous priority school report, so I won't take you back through those, but you know that there are some fundamental differences between restaffing and transformation. Transformation works when a principal has chosen his staff, worked with them for a while, and has that staff, and everyone was clear kind of at the beginning that this dramatic change was happening. Restaffing occurs when there needs to be a fresh start, when up to 50% of a faculty can have other opportunities, can have the chance to move to different locations if that's what they want, and the principal has an opportunity to redefine exactly what the school is about. So in that process, with this theory of action, it seemed pretty clear that we would be able to restaff better aligns with what Mr. Baldwin, KDE, his assistant superintendent, and others believe will move that school forward. Now, from this, we looked at what would we try to make happen if we moved to a restaffing, and we talked about exactly what these strategies could lead us toward in terms of outcomes. And Jack, if you would like to talk about those outcomes a little bit and some of your observations around this shift.
Certainly, Dr. Hargens, members of the board. Dr. Hensley has laid down the challenge for us, which we embrace, and that he said, I want to see Myers become, and stated, and we all recognize it, around a standards-based school, a user of the PLC process to achieve student achievement increases, and a user of the PBIS system to manage the behaviors which have shown up on past and current audits of the school's performance. And so this is one of multiple initiatives that we see as helping us to do that, to bring the school forward. This, in conjunction with a budget request, which is already working its way, it's cleared the staff on its way to the superintendent. A combination of these, we think we can set some goals and put some hard numbers to what we expect to be able to achieve and to measure our future efficacy. And those are, given this and the other initiatives we propose, we believe we can move certainly out of the first percentile and above the fifth percentile in a year after implementation of the new model. We believe we can increase our overall academic index score from 32.3 to 41.8 within 2 years of implementation of the model. We believe we can meet our AMO under this, and perhaps most importantly, the dynamic that is currently at Myers. And I just want to first say, Myers has good teachers. Myers has teachers I would be proud to have teaching a child of mine. Myers has some teachers that, as the student body has changed, have self-identified themselves as ready to, or not being exactly suited for the niche that we have. The level of challenge that Myers has takes a special breed. I'm a volunteer. Not all of the teachers got a chance to volunteer for the current level of challenge at Myers. And this will be a way to help them move without consequence into a setting where they may be better suited, and perhaps even more importantly, to open the doors to some people who are ready to commit, and or many of the staff will want to stay, recommit to the current challenge we have, and pledge, like I just have, these are the goals we're going to meet, or we're prepared to be accountable if we don't meet them, given the resources that we've asked for. So.
Very good. So basically, in conclusion, this request we're making that this restaffing occur, this new turnaround model be employed at Myers, has been through a process with a lot of stakeholders. I know that Jack met with small groups of teachers all day today to talk about what that would look like. I know that we've worked with JCTA, we've worked with the Kentucky Department of Education. We've looked at it from a lot of different angles, and while this is a quick decision, it doesn't come without a great deal of reflection and without us thinking about what it will take to recommit. And looking at the potential at Myers, we know that Myers has some unique challenges, but all turnaround schools, all priority schools have, to some degree, unique challenges. And it's not a matter of even teacher quality sometimes. It's more a matter of teacher fit, of finding the right fit so that there's a match between Mr. Baldwin and his guiding coalition's vision of what the school can be and what the teachers there want to commit to. So for many teachers, it's an opportunity for them who have attempted over a couple of years to transfer to locations that they feel are better fits for them. This is an opportunity, in effect, for that to occur, for for a win-win situation for a number of those teachers who have their opportunity to go to other locations, for teachers that want to stay to apply and recommit to that vision, and for, most importantly, Mr. Baldwin and his team and everybody, every stakeholder in that school to have a new and different start where we've signaled dramatic change, where a new plan is put in place, where a new monitoring system might be put in place. It's a little different than what's in the transformation model, so that we're able to ensure that the kids in that building and the adults and everyone are in a learning environment. So that's both our request and our rationale for why we bring that to the table, and I'll open the door for any questions.
Mr. Hathaway.
Mr. Baldwin, you mentioned some percentages. Can you repeat those again, what you were thinking?
Certainly. The goal percentages, currently Myers is in the first percentile of middle schools. We believe within 1 year after implementation, a full data cycle to calculate, we can be at the 5th percentile or above and on our way out of PLA status. That's the first of multiple conditions for PLA. We believe we can increase our overall score from 32.3 to 41.8, which is above our projected goal AMO established by the state.
And Jack, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that would actually be over a 2-year period, and it's attempting to mirror what's happened in other restaffed schools.
Okay. That was my next question. I wanted to know how you got to those figures, and it is a 2-year, and you're saying it's mirroring other schools.
Right.
Okay. My other question is, with this transition, how does that affect KDE's timeline with Myers?
Whenever you, I'm not sure that it will actually affect.
Doesn't reset or anything.
Right. Whenever you have the opportunity for a school improvement grant, whenever you reapply, it asks you to identify the turnaround model that you're selecting and give a rationale for that and look at your data and do a lot of things. So I think it probably doesn't affect their timeline, but it is something that I wouldn't even say encouraged maybe, but is something you can do whenever you reapply for SIG.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Duncan.
Jack, did you ever do a survey among your staff to make sure you had a majority?
A complete survey before today, no, and I'll explain the timeline there. Only a week and a half ago, I became aware of it was even a possibility to restaff, and then that began some discussions. And last Friday, the snow day, that's when I approached Dr. Hensley and said, now that I've become aware, I've looked at it and examined and think it might be a good idea. But at that time, we didn't know whether or not it was even possible to get it onto the board agenda for tonight, which would be the time necessary before the application that is due Thursday.
Jack, if I could add something, the only thing about the whole process and talking to teachers and Jack's conversations and the notes we've taken on that, from his notes, the only thing that I really regret is the fact that teachers read an article in the Courier-Journal this morning about this idea of restaffing. And nothing about the article. The article was fine and honest and very good. Nothing at all. It's a good article. But the fact that occurred on the Monday, we didn't anticipate we didn't quite know for sure that we didn't know the article was going to come out on Monday. Jack had already had scheduled to do focus groups with his teachers and talk this through. We were just caught in a timeline there that was very rapid with the school improvement grant turnaround, the time for that grant. And that's the one thing I regret. I actually take full responsibility for that. I should have talked to the fine reporter at the Courier-Journal and said, hey, by the way, when is this going to come out? I was actually interviewed on Sunday. I was at Gein's Sunday afternoon when I talked on the phone with Tony Cons, and it just never occurred to me at that time that the article would come out the next day, and I apologize to the teachers for not being more savvy in terms of thinking when that article would come out, because certainly they have a great deal of respect for Mr. Baldwin, and it would have been much better had that fully been, some of them knew, Jack had talked to a number of them, so I knew that, but it would have been much better had we ensured they knew before it was in the Courier-Journal. So that's my responsibility.
That's what we usually hear, a staff support for a change like this. So that's the part that kind of is a difficult part for us. Jack, what do you restaffing up to 50%? What do you estimate you might have to, because you have a lot of new people in anyway?
Right. We do. I primarily, of course, there are different theories on what should be done or what is possible. But my personal theory is that I'm just largely looking for rededication to the new vision and an insistence on certain student achievement goals by everybody. So within the turnover that the staff has already experienced within the last 2 years, that number could slide one way or the other with a great deal of liberality. We've had almost 50% turnover in the last 2 years as it is. So it wouldn't necessarily be a lot of people going who did not, or were just the ones who were not able by their own acknowledgement that they are a good fit for the new vision.
And one thing I really like about Mr. Baldwin's approach is he's already talked to me about that idea of what are we looking for in a teacher that we want to commit to this work, even if it's a brand new teacher. What qualities and attitudes are we looking for? How can we support them? How can we change what we did in the transformation model to restaff in a very intentional way? And I think that's quality leadership.
What we are looking to do, and in talking with Dr. Hensley, is we envision setting up criteria that will be built around interviews in which we can restate the new vision, but it'll be based on competencies and primarily the disposition of teachers to meet the challenge. We've also committed to and began some overtures to collaborate with the Human Relations Department to help us with the recruiting effort for those vacancies that should be there. And as I said before, we want to get a commitment for everyone to going forward. And then lastly, thank you, Mr. Jones, for introducing me to Mr. Claypool and Teach Kentucky, and I've attended the Teach Kentucky recruiting session, and the talent pool out there looks pretty good, and I'm confident that we can find, for what vacancies we do have, some talented and enthusiastic people to fill them that are just the right fit.
Young teachers and new teachers can't all be the formula here.
Right.
What else do you have in mind for approaching your high at-risk population that you're serving?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, that is working with human relations, and I'm going to need some help there in doing reach out to current teachers that may be out there. I know the one or two that I'm aware of, and in each year since I've been there, we have brought on staff some experienced teachers from other schools that either my reputation or knew me had elected to come there, and I think I can continue.
What about small class sizes, Jack?
Excellent. That is part of the budget request that I talked about. The bill payer up to now in Myers has been that we have had to cash in some teaching positions in order to pay for instructors to provide emotional support and academic interventions, and to get the adult-to-child ratio down. We have so many students coming into the building that have, large non-cognitive needs that have to be addressed. And the bill payer has been classroom size. So with the additional budget request, we won't have to do that, and we can, in some cases, we've got a couple of models that we're looking at, get the class size down in some as much as 16 to 20 students per class, and have that second adult to work with high needs children for behavior and academic interventions.
Thank you. I think that's critical. I know Debbie and I visited Breckenridge Metro Friday, and the power of adults, more adults per student, is just immense. And so, anytime we can do that in our buildings, I think that gives us a better fighting chance to help kids better.
Absolutely.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Mr. Baldwin, I have a couple questions. First, could you explain your diagnosis of Myers' problem? This is the first time I've considered these different models, and I feel a little bit like, the doctor has told me about you're moving from this medicine to that medicine, but I don't know what underlying condition I have. So can you just sort of explain why is Myers in the bottom 1%?
Why I can in terms of just demonstrated that it is and that is failure to achieve academic growth. Now there's some other indices that we could look at that show that we are growing kids once we get our hands on them. Okay, but the overall drop in our academic index was a function of the students who we sent out 2 years ago versus the year group that came in to replace them. There was over a 10% difference in proficiency and distinguished level. So in 1 year, 1/3 of the population of the school turned over with just, for a variety of reasons, a new level of challenge came in the door. So while we improved every year group from their performance the year before, even that low scoring cohort of sixth graders that came in, we managed to improve their reading proficiency by a small percentage. And then the sixth graders that we had the year before increased even more as seventh graders, and the seventh graders from the year before increased even more as eighth graders. But it's very, very hard to overcome that big a difference between what you sent out and what comes in.
So let me make sure I understand it right. Is there something different about the kids who are selecting or being assigned to Myers?
All of the above.
And has there been a structural change in the way students are coming to Myers?
I don't know because I think whatever structural changes occurred prior to my arrival. Now through grandfathering, I may have arrived just at the time that some of the differences were hitting, but I'm not sure what changes occurred.
And I think I remember you saying the first time you spoke to the board on a different subject that Myers draws from 50 elementary schools, 50. Is that accurate?
It was 49 when I spoke before, and I thought my staff told me it was going to be 52, and I think something I saw from
presently
the district.
56.
So is that typical of our middle schools?
It is. It is, in fact. And I should clarify here, too, there are at-risk kids, but, as I'll quote or paraphrase Forrest Gump's mom, at-risk is as at-risk does. So you can have a population of, say, free and reduced lunch like Myers, but there is a wide range of, how resilient kids will be. So you can't use that as the only index, nor any of the other index, with the possible exception of ECE, because that's usually a one-for-one impact in the gap population. But among all of the other groups, they are not evenly distributed across all schools. And just 1 year, that our first year under the new assessment model, we happened to get a disproportionate share of bottom quartile performing students.
Okay, and do you know what percentage of kids who come to Myers choose it as their first or second choice?
Well, all students, I mean, they don't choose Myers. We're not a magnet. So if they live in our resides, they come to us unless they choose to go somewhere else.
Right.
And we do lose a lot of students to other schools.
And they gained approximately 100 kids from other resides, too. So I have some data I can share with you that shows that Dr. Radosky's shop put together around middle schools and where there attends versus there resides and how kids move there. And among in terms of that, Myers actually ranks third among the priority middle schools in terms of the number of schools that feed in. At 56. So there's two other priority middle schools that actually have higher number of schools that feed their middle school.
Okay. So back to the diagnosis. The numbers are driven by by the falling preparation of your incoming.
Well, they're affected. I don't think they're driven. The responsibility remains with us.
So what's the diagnosis? I mean, is the diagnosis that you've got the wrong mix of teachers? Is that what we should hear?
No, I don't think so. We have a lot of challenge, but in order to, and we're accepting responsibility. I'm not complaining for our task. I mean, I volunteered and a lot did, and we want to round out with more volunteers. But we're going to have to reorganize around a vision built upon student achievement is the only thing that matters. Or it is the most important thing that matters. And and that's going to take a cultural shift within the building.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Brady?
I have a few questions. And first question was, we received a question as to whether or not redoing or going to another model is actually legal by the way the statute was written. And I was expecting to hear some type of response this afternoon. I never heard anything as to whether or not this is even allowed by the way the statute was written.
I can answer that for you, Mr. Brady. The statute at KRS 160-346 subsection 9 requires that each PLA school shall engage in one of 4 intervention options or any other option that's recognized by the feds and No Child Left Behind. We believe a reasonable interpretation of that requirement is that a school may only engage in one of the intervention models at a time, not one forever, but one at a time, and that the statute allows the board to change models, such as in this case. The KDE has responded to us this afternoon, and they agree with that interpretation.
Great, because obviously the first email it sounded like the KDE attorney was saying that was not the case.
Right. And toward the end of that email, he conjectured that maybe it only meant one at a time, but I think...
I just want to make sure we're actually on good legal ground here before we proceed further. And this question is also to another non-board member, no one at the desk. Kathy, just real quick, sorry to put you on the spot. When was this item added to our agenda? Was this a part of the original agenda that was published on Wednesday?
It was actually added before it became published. So it was added in between actually reviewing the agenda and actually publishing it for the full board.
So it was on the agenda by Wednesday?
Yes.
All right. So this is my question. And Dr. Hensley, you had mentioned the fact that you didn't, you were concerned, or you took responsibility for the fact that this was not communicated to staff before you talked to a Courier Journal reporter. My response to that is that doesn't matter because our agendas are public domain, and we really need to get to a point where we're going to communicate this issue the moment it goes onto an agenda, whether or not, regardless of whether we're talking to an attorney or not an attorney, to a reporter or not. That is just something that that's something we have to do. I mean, it seems to be, frankly, a little disrespectful to the teachers at Myers for us to talk to a reporter before we talk to them. And if that means I'm being a little harsh on this, I think honestly.
No, I take responsibility for it, and I agree with you, sir. I would not Teachers are, I still view myself as a teacher, so I certainly am not satisfied with myself with the timing of how that worked out. I can do better than that, and promise you I will.
All right, good, because that needs to be taken care of. The last point I just really wanted to talk about is that, and we talked, and this is following up on what Ms. Duncan was talking about regarding new teachers. And, you know, obviously we need experienced teachers. We need teachers that have good experience, especially in a turnaround model, and to provide that experience. And I assume that Myers is already eligible for this, but I want to reinforce this, just at least the community can know. But it is CARDS program eligible, to where that is an option to where our more experienced teachers can pursue getting their master's degree while being reimbursed from the district if they stay at that particular priority school, to share that and stay on with that experience. And that way, once they get to a certain level, they're not apt to just, oh, okay, let's go to another school. Now, I can say from my own experience and within the healthcare field, I know that just because you're a nurse that prefers to be on the inpatient floor as opposed to the emergency department, that doesn't mean you're a bad nurse. That just means that your skill set is maybe more something that's a little bit more, it'll take a little bit more time, or is not as rapid fire pace as you'd have in an emergency department. And we have people rotate in and out. So I know that this is going out to the community. So my point here is that, you know, when you're talking about some of these teachers that are recognizing that this is not the environment that they really want, that they're really best for, I want the community to understand that what we're really talking about is people are sometimes are more apt to excel in a high stress environment. Some people are more likely to excel in a non-high stress environment. It's just different people in the way they react. So I don't want anyone in the community to really think that, oh, we got really bad teachers because they can't hack it at Myers. That's not the case at all. It's just that different, teachers are people too.
It's really the right fit.
People are different. So it's finding that right fit. But regarding going back to the CARDS program, I mean, that is something that you're eligible for, and that's something that we can also tout to our more experienced teachers that are looking to have that extra, that they get that master's degree or get help getting that master's degree. And this is one way that we might be able to do that for them, right?
Certainly the CARDS program will help us to recruit, as you say, that mid-range veteran teacher who's still looking to get their further graduate degrees. Also, you hit an interesting point, too. I'll just say anecdotally, as a classroom teacher, and I said we have good teachers, it can also be a season of someone's life. There was a time when I, was at one end of the spectrum. I taught all AP classes and was happy. Then as I moved on later on and saw what it was really about, I deliberately sought the other end of the spectrum and worked at the high school where I was in Hardin County, primarily credit recovery classes and kids who had failed 4 or 5 times, and found greater satisfaction. But I was at a life circumstance where that was also possible. And that changes with adults from time to time. So this model would support that. And then the last thing, I cannot let my boss take the blame for what is my responsibility. I've got to be the primary communicator to my staff, and I recognize this as a growth area myself. Where this came from was I wanted to do it right, and I also didn't want to move too fast before I had complete information about would it be on the agenda and et cetera. And I just thought I had one more day to execute what I did do today, and by doing it right, I said I wanted to assemble small groups and be able to allay whatever concerns I might have. And I emerged with the end product, and I regret, but it's my fault, that because I too misjudged when the CJ article, which was certainly fair, was going to be published, and that's I can't let Dr. Hensley take it's mine.
Okay.
I just have one quick question. You talked about 50% turnover of staff in the last 2 years. How many people is that?
It's about, and actually the figure is 3 years, so I would have to go back and get better data to adjust it, but it was 24 out of 46 teachers in the last 3 years.
And you've been at Myers how long?
2 years Monday.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Jones?
So I want to thank you all for taking responsibility, and I do think that communicating with people who work in the school is a big deal. But I also want to just call out one thing. If I understood Dr. Hargens correctly, the news was posted Thursday afternoon on the board portal. And I mention that because I want to call out to all interested parties, all our media friends, that the district is doing a lot of work to improve transparency. And the people who are trying to figure out what's going on, we're not anywhere near where we need to be and where we can be. But this bit of information, I think, was right out there on the website or on the board portal website Thursday afternoon or evening. So we need to, that doesn't mean you don't have to talk to the teachers, because teachers are not expected to go look at the board portal. Right. But the people who are, whose job it is to follow the school district have a new way to find that information, and it will continue to get better.
Ms. Westland.
Just one more thing. Mr. Baldwin and Dr. Hensley, I want to thank you because we've seen you quite a few times these last few months. It's obvious that you're trying everything and thinking every thought, and we really need that kind of honesty when situations are this urgent. And so I think, we want to support you, but we just have to have the right options and the right kind of information. So thank you for stepping up and seeing an opportunity that you think will make a difference and bringing it to us, because we're only as good as you allow us to be and support you in that way. So thanks a lot, both of you.
Is there a motion to approve the restaffing turnaround model at Myers Middle School? Mr. Jones, second. Mr. Brady, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much for your report and the information. We're going to move down to the 2013-14 Board of Education discussion agenda planning calendar. Any comments on the agenda planning calendar? Ms. Haddad?
Yeah, I had talked with you earlier. I'd sent an email, but I also talked to you earlier this evening about the evaluation. We're going to have the evaluation, you said, the 2 Mondays in June, and then in July we were going to have training. And it seems like that's backwards to me, that we should have the training first. Of it, you explained we're going to use the old methods this year, not the new one. But it still seems like with the new board members, and I call them new still, that it would be good for us to sit down and have a training session, whether or not it's the new model, but just so everybody is on the same page, because the many years I've been on the board has changed as many times. And I think all board members need to buy into it. I didn't know if we could do that the first work session in June, if we're going to still stay with the old model. And then we could have the evaluation in June, and then you can call a special meeting if you want to have the final one, because July's 28th is really late and vacations come in, and I understand all that. But I would hope that you all, the superintendent and the chair and vice chair, could get together and discuss that and see if there's a way that we could do that, because I think the training would be invaluable to all of us to work together. That's something we haven't done. Even when we've had our retreats, we have not talked about evaluation and how we're going to do that. But that's just a thought, and that's something else.
And I'll just clarify, if the training is really, because there is the new instrument that we talked about that aligns with the principal and the teacher instrument. So it was my understanding that that training was about the new instrument, and we're still on an old process. But let me clarify that. If it's different training, perhaps we can have 2. So I'll clarify it.
And I just want to say that today I did receive from Kathy Smith, who contacted KSBA, the contact person for the superintendent's evaluation training, because when the question was initially asked, when it came out, I did speak with Dr. Hargens about, did we need to have the evaluation prior to doing her evaluation for this year? We have been approved to use the instrument that we used last year. The new effective superintendent evaluation is effective for the 2014-15 school year, and we are currently finishing up 13-14 year. At the KSBA conference, I attended one of the sessions on the superintendent's evaluation. There's a handout that I will make available to all the board members. There is not a specific template at this point about what the 14-15 evaluation will look like, but I will, after receiving the information today, contact KSBA to determine more information, which I will share with the board. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, my only concern is that, we get the information out about the evaluation, and the 3 members have not been a part of that, and they may have different ideas whether it's an old instrument or it's a new one. I just think that just to have a conversation about it, because it changes all the time. I mean, I don't know what difference it would make if we talked about the old one or the new one or the combination, even if they don't know what the new one's going to be. But I just think it would be good to sit down and talk about, because we may want to do it differently, just doing it the way we've always done it. But we've changed it so many times.
We have to complete the evaluation based on what we did last time. That's what we must do for this academic year.
And the law says that?
Well, I think that's what we voted to do, and the new evaluation is not in place. I think we're all willing to entertain the conversation. So that's what I think everyone is saying, that you'd like to have the conversation, more information. And the other thing we attempted to do was to bring the KSBA training to us, because we have this requirement to get all of this done this year, which is the first time that we've had that. So the recommendation was to bring it here in-house so it's easier for the board members to receive it. And Board Member Westland recommended that we invite some of the other districts to participate with us. So that's what we're trying to do, provide the professional development not only to our board but other boards that want to participate. So we will get more information and share that with the board. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Okay. Ms. Duncan?
Will Shawnee have a proposed change, or is Shawnee, once they have a principal now, are we still on the same plan that has been there before? Or is there a plan for Shawnee to do something different?
Well, if any changes would be proposed that would need board approval, we'll bring it back. But right now, Dr. Barber is assessing the situation, and he hasn't brought forward any kind of change. So, but we'll bring something forward.
All right, thank you.
And I think what Dr. Barber is doing, Ms. Duncan, is trying to roll out the plan for Shawnee. I was there today for a meeting. He is outreach to the community. So he did not speak specifically about coming to us like the meeting that what we just did. He's working with the staff within to develop plans. So I have not heard that. I was there today for a meeting. And I think that we have a community conversation there, and he also is having a community meeting there. So what he did was work internally with the staff and the community to develop a 30, 60, 90-day plan. I believe that's correct, Dr. Hargens. Yes. And he continues to work to communicate that plan currently, but no mention has been made of what we just did before for the Academy at Shawnee.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Brady.
Just want to clarify the required learning or required training that we have from, I guess, state statute now or KSBA. There's the aspect of the superintendent evaluation, but there's also an ethics requirement as well. So I'm not certain, are we talking about one in lieu of the other, or are we talking about bringing both of those classes here?
Both of them to,
okay, I just
to
want to
Jefferson County.
Okay, I just want to make sure I clarified on that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anything else on the planning calendar?
One more thing. Sorry, it just occurred to me. When we start talking about the evaluation for the superintendent, if we're going to bring that class in, my suggestion would be that we kind of put it in the later half of the year or the later quarter of the year. The reason being is because just for retention's sake, so we don't have training in June and then almost a full year passes where we have to think back, oh, what was that training like? So it's just my little request there. Whatever works is fine, but that's just my request.
Okay, let us get all the details and share that with you, because going into the evaluation, we develop something that the superintendent comes back to us mid-year and then again in June. So let us do a better job of getting the information to the board. Yeah. Any other questions on the planning calendar? Is there a motion to receive the planning calendar? Mr. Brady, second. Ms. Haddad, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much. Board reports and requests, and I would like to say that there are 4 speakers tonight as well. So under board reports and requests, Ms. Haddad.
I had a wonderful opportunity to go to Cam Taylor for the PLC, And I hope all of you will take the opportunity to go see the schools and how they're operating, how they're functioning. It was a wonderful experience, and it was very authentic. The teachers were sitting there really talking about the students that they had and what they were going to do to make it better. And that's really what it's all about. And it was really exciting to hear the conversation going on about how they were going to take these. I'll take your kids, you take my kids. It's a working together, which I think is wonderful for teachers to have the opportunity. The one thing they did mention is that when they did theirs, they would do an extra, and they would take in money from their budget to have an extra 50-minute planning period for teachers. And I think we need to look at that as we look at the budget. If we can help the schools, they were giving something else up so that they could get together and talk about the kids. I think it's really important because this was very, very valuable to see. And it's what we're asking them to do, so we need to make sure we give them the resources they need when we have the expectation. But it was really a really great experience for me. And I hope all of you can go see one because it's really good. Thank you.
Mr. Brady and then Ms. Duncan.
Sure. Just want to kind of report out on some things that have been going on at the board. I know that, first of all, last week, Member Westland and I, along with the superintendent, went to Frankfurt and spent a day up there kind of lobbying on behalf of JCPS, but not just us, but on behalf of a lot of different school districts within the state to try and ask our legislators to bring back funding to 2009 SEEK funding levels, at least at the very least. Would like to see that. And it was just going to, I think it was a great event, and it was put on, coordinated by KSBA. So I just want to talk about that. Later that evening, we also had a great event, Junior Achievement. Honored 4 inductees to their Business Hall of Fame. Jim Allen was among them, so I just wanted to be able to call that out as well. And also, I just want to talk about a really neat experience I was a part of earlier this afternoon on my lunch break from my regular job. I went out and attended a talk by Jamie Kassab, who is the Global Educational Evangelist for Google, who was at the Gaines Academy earlier this afternoon and was reporting out to some of our staff on some of the educational technologies that are out there, and it gave a really good opportunity to kind of, hear, gave a chance for our staff to hear what, that viewpoint is from, a technology giant, but also for that technology giant to kind of get to know, one of their districts, one of the, bigger urban districts in the country, here in Louisville, Kentucky. So I thought that was a really neat event. The last thing I want to talk about, and just so I can get this officially on the record, and I don't mean to harp, but I'm going to go back to my earlier criticism about things being on the agenda. Again, my request is that we really need to have everything, all the attachments need to be on the agenda at least by Friday. And it wasn't just the work session that I'm talking about. I was noticing through some of the grants materials that some of those materials weren't on there last night. So it's just, to me, it seems to be vitally important that we're adequately prepared. And I think, it would also help our meetings run more smoothly if we can kind of, do our homework such as it is beforehand. But we need to make sure we have the textbooks in time to be able, for test time. So we just can't expect to read the textbook while we're in the middle of our test, so to speak. So it's just something I really want to get officially out there as a request. And I don't know if that requires us making a policy to say that our agenda is locked. I would hope not, because I know that things are going to come up. But we've got to get to a point where it isn't just, oh, hey, look, we got everything together. It's expected. Thank you.
Anything else under board reports and requests? Ms. Duncan, I'm sorry.
I'm going to mix mine up a little bit. I don't know whether Debbie was going to talk about
what?
Our visit to...
You go right ahead, Linda.
Sorry. But we had a wonderful visit at Breckenridge Metro. Principal Butch Cripe spent 3 hours with us, taking us through every classroom and meeting all the staff people and really getting a great picture of how the resources are used there to support the needs of those individual kids. And these are our highest risk kids in the district that are attending there. So it was that was great. And tied to that, I have a request. I would like for us to be sure that we take a look at the grant that ran out on them. that funds their first period behavioral skills class, and it's just a critical need that they have, and just would like for somebody to take a look at that and make sure that we can preserve funding for that first period class, first in the day. I'm also requesting any plans that we have for how we're going to give extended learning time to our priority kids or our gap kids that are in non-priority schools. We're hitting the kids in the priority schools. Do we have any plans for how we can address the ones who are in non-priority schools, those kids that need extra learning time? Also, I'd like to ask for what it would cost to have nurses serve our priority schools, and what the absolute cost might be. Some of them have them already. Some of them have bought them themselves, I think, or have funded them themselves. But I'd like to know what that would cost if we could have nurses available in those schools. Just, I think, a big need there. And last thing I'd like to say is I want to thank Dr. Eileen Gold, who heads our Volunteer Talent Center. She came to Iroquois Business Association, which is now South Louisville Business Association, meeting to talk to members about our effort this year to support the Olmsted schools with mentoring. And the Business Association is going to either send employees or go themselves and spend a half hour a week at the selected students at the Olmsted schools, boys' girls school and girls school, and Rutherford Elementary. We have one member that wants to serve Rutherford Elementary. But I just appreciate so much. She came and talked to us and told us about what we needed to prepare ourselves for, and is going to set up training at probably Olmsted North for the association. But anyway, appreciate her attention and effort.
Mr. Jones.
Okay.
I just want to give a shout out and a thank you to Dr. Hargens and Chair Porter for coming to the Simmons announcement today that it had received accreditation and gotten initial funding. I think the relaunch of a historically black college or university in Louisville is big news locally, probably nationally, and it's important that JCPS be a good partner to that. I'm a board member of that organization also, so I was especially proud and happy to see you guys there. Thank you.
Just real quickly, I wanted to congratulate the young people that participated in the YMCA Black Achievers Celebration Program Saturday night. It was held at the Ramada, and there were a number of seniors that received significant scholarships to go to college as we move toward our 55,000 and 15,000 degree program. There are a lot of people in this community that volunteer their time for the program. It's more than the celebration, and it has been the key program in the nation for a long time as it pertains to that Achievers program. So I wanted to congratulate the young people that received the scholarships and the Adult Achievers of the Year as well. And also last night, Dr. Hargens and I had an opportunity to participate in the Central High School Distinguished Alumni Program that they do every other year. It was at the Ollie Center, and one of the graduates of Central High School is in investments, and he's given over $130,000 back to the school because he says if he invests on their side, one day they will be investors in the community on the other side. So that's significant that someone has taken that opportunity to give back to a local high school. I know people say that in this county all we talk about is where people go to high school, but the bottom line is this is someone that it meant enough to him to give that kind of money back to his local high school. He no longer lives here anymore, but I think last night he walked in with a check for like $30,000 for scholarships for students. So that deserves a shout out. So I just wanted to mention those two items. Anything else on board reports and requests? Okay, there are 4 speakers to address the board tonight. I'll read the rules. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to address the board, At the end of 2.5 minutes, a bell will sound once. You will then have 30 seconds to finish your statement. At the end of 3 minutes, the bell will sound twice, indicating that your time is up. I'd like to thank all the speakers that are here tonight to address the board. Our first speaker is Rochelle Mitchell. Rochelle Mitchell. Ms. Mitchell. Our next speaker is Scott Wendergast. Scott Wendergast. Okay, our third speaker is Matt Brooks. Matt Brooks. Welcome, Mr. Brooks. Thank you for being here tonight. You may have a seat or you may stand at the podium, wherever you're more comfortable.
Okay, my name is Matthew Brooks. I've worked for JCPS for 4 years. I was instructional assistant. I've been substitute teacher, varsity baseball coach, and varsity golf coach. I went back this last fall to get my master's degree, kind of on the advice of some colleagues, and I have a 3.96 GPA, and I've documented over 400 hours of field work since August in JCPS. And now here comes the issue. And I know a lot of you have seen my email, and I know I've gotten a couple of emails back. But 10 years ago in Georgia, I was arrested for a misdemeanor possession of marijuana. I've had a clean record since then. The issue is that Georgia has a new law in place from 2012 that says they won't expunge first-time offenders. I don't know why. I've had 5 background checks, 3 with my university and 2 with you all. And like I said, I've worked for you for 4 years. I got a phone call just before Christmas from Carl Williams. He told me that JCPS should have never hired me, and it was a clerical error. This is after I've spent $20,000 on my education. As you can see, it's fairly devastating. I have letters of recommendation and character confirmation from many people that work underneath you all. Mr. Kripe as one of them, one of my best advocates. I'm here to try to make an exception be made in my case, and or call for a change in hiring practices. In a country where second chances are universally given, I'm in need of one badly. I'm a product of JCPS. I went to Butler High School, coach at Butler High School, not anymore. I would challenge you to find someone that would question my character, even throughout your own employees through JCPS. You're just not going to find it. All cases are not the same, and I feel like I've been lumped in with child molesters, frankly, and heroin addicts. I mean, at the end of the day, and it's not me. Anyone, you can ask any one of your colleagues. I have several letters of recommendation with me and several more that I could email you or deliver to you. I need to be allowed to student teach. That's where it starts and stops. I've been declined. I've appealed. My previous experiences prove that I'm a worthy candidate. This was a mistake that I made, and I live with it daily. And do not think that I'm underscoring what I did, because I was stupid. I was 10 years ago, and I was just a dumb kid. And I just don't think that should kind of penalize me for the rest of my life. Teaching is my passion. I feel like it's what I was put here to do, and I've been fighting this since December with no answer. So that's why I'm here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks, for being here. Dr. Hargens typically looks into people that address the board to the situation or assign a staff to look into it. I know you're asking for a policy change, but we refer everything to the superintendent, and then that's how the process works.
Even if it's not a policy change, an exception to the rule, I think there's such a thing as that as well, and I would be greatly appreciative. As I said, this is my passion, and this is all that I know to do right now.
Mr. Brooks, the board cannot influence hiring, so they can't make an individual exception for you.
Right.
But I'm sure the superintendent will respond to the question about the policy to you. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Our last speaker tonight is Shelby Lanier. Mr. Lanier, thank you for being here tonight.
Good evening, Board. I'm going to be brief. So I want to pass this out. I have a copy for every board. I want to talk briefly about the African American read-in chain. If you're not familiar with it, in its 25th year, the African American read-in chain has been successful in making reading a traditional part of Black History Month celebrations throughout the country. Sponsored nationally by the National Council of Teachers of English and endorsed by the International Reading Association, the intent of this national literacy campaign is to popularize reading as an essential, fun, and productive practice that will last a lifetime. The African American reading chain has proved to be especially beneficial for encouraging young children and youth to make reading a lifelong, life-enriching practice. The founder and national director of the African American Reading is Dr. Jerry Scott, a literacy professor at the University of Memphis. The first coordinator for the reading chain in Kentucky was the late Dr. M. Celeste Nichols. The Education Society of my church, Emmanuel Baptist Church, celebrated its 19th year of sponsoring a read-in there at my church every Friday, and I think about 2 Sundays ago. I made a presentation. And also, before that, I want to present something African American history on a lady by the name of, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with, Mary McLeod Bethune. She was a White House advisor, tireless educator, except this is an excerpt from an interview. I picked up one of the books, and one of the white girls said to me, "You can't read that, put that down. I will show you some pictures over here." And when she said to me, "You can't read that," made me feel that someday I would read just as she was reading. I did put it down and followed her lead and looked at the picture book that she read. But I went away from there determined to learn how to read, and that someday I would master for myself just what they were getting, and it was the aim that I followed. Now, I made a presentation on a book written entitled, "If I Make My Bed in Hell, He's There." And that book was written by Reverend Charles Mims Jr., who I knew personally. And it's there, the part that I read from 2 chapters in that book. But in close, let me say, Charles Mims was a product of the Jefferson County school system. The picture there in that literature shows a picture with myself, Charles Mims, and Lenny Lyles, along with 2 distinguished businessmen in New Orleans. And let me say this, is that we all were products of Central High School, very proud of it. And I want to say to Brother Jones there, is that also that school, I believe, became accredited from what I read. You know, it's been fighting to become accredited. And then also Dr. Kevin Cosby is a relative of Charles Mims. And I'm proud to say that, and I always say that to you all, there's no such thing as no failing schools. You have students in every school, the private school system, St. X, Flag, JA, Assumption, everybody else. All students make A, B, C's, D's, E's, and they make F's. So I want to thank you for indulging me. And please read that literature. And it has all of the information about the reading program. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. There is no need for an executive session. Our next meeting will be March the 10th. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? Ms. Haddad, second. Mr. Hathaway, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much.